The story starts with Azusa walking confidently toward her company building. Her posture was perfect and her expression composed, the kind that made people recognize her instantly. Around the office, she was known for her award-winning proposals and her precise, almost flawless work ethic. As she stepped through the lobby, several employees glanced her way with quiet admiration. But the moment she reached the entrance gate, her calm image cracked. She scanned her card and tried to pass through, but the gate didn't move. Looking down, she realized she hadn't scanned her ID at all. It was a business card for plumbing services. A wave of quiet embarrassment washed over her as she hurriedly corrected her mistake. Meanwhile, in the publicity department, her colleague Kusuk was drowning in stress over a growing pile of work. The atmosphere in the room shifted as Azusa entered, heading straight to her desk. Her coworkers greeted her politely, some with genuine respect, others with nervous courtesy. Once the greetings faded, everyone immediately returned to work. No one wanted to look idle in front of her. Soon, Mori approached her with a concern. One of the influencers they had hired for a campaign had suddenly become unavailable. She asked if Azusa had any ideas on how to handle it. Cold and composed, Azusa reminded her that it was her own responsibility to manage the situation. Still, she offered a solution. If that influencer couldn't participate, they could easily find a stand-in, since several other talents were available. Mori thanked her and retreated, slightly intimidated but relieved. Not long after, Azusa walked over to Kusuk's desk to hand him some corrected documents. She told him to send them to the planning department, then noticed his messy workspace. With a sharp tone, she scolded him and he hurriedly began cleaning, mumbling an apology. A moment later, Azusa was called over by her boss, Iji. As she walked away, two female co-workers whispered about how dependable she was, while Kusuk muttered that she was also terrifying. The girls agreed, though they admitted she could at least try being a bit friendlier. When Azusa reached Eiji's office, he informed her about a new hire who would be joining their department that day, and that she would be in charge of training him. For a brief moment, uncertainty flickered across her face, but Eiji reassured her that the newcomer was talented and should adapt quickly. He added that having someone as accomplished as Azusa as his mentor would surely benefit the company. Azusa smiled politely at the compliment and accepted the assignment, though inwardly she sighed. She had spent years cultivating her icy image precisely to avoid things like after-work gatherings or mentoring responsibilities. Unfortunately, Eiji seemed completely unaware of her intentions, still believing she got along with everyone. The thought made her even gloomier, though she promised herself to stay professional. Moments later, the new hire arrived. An energetic voice echoed through the department as a young man greeted everyone. Turning around, Azusa saw him, Yu, the new recruit, smiling brightly as he introduced himself to Eiji. When their eyes met, Yu quickly apologized for interrupting, but Eiji introduced them properly, asking Azusa to show him around. Azusa responded with her usual cool tone, hiding the fact that inwardly she was quite flustered. She found his energy and boyish charm unexpectedly disarming. Still, she composed herself and resolved to fulfill her duty as his mentor. She led Yu to the merchandising room, explaining that the company had originally started as a game developer but had since expanded into several industries, from apparel to real estate and more. Because of that, their publicity department was constantly juggling multiple projects at once. Determined to be thorough, Azusa gave Yu a full tour, the desks, the kitchen, the copy machine, the snack area, even the location of the nearest bathroom. Feeling rather proud of her efficiency, she believed she had covered everything important. But as soon as they sat down, Yu hesitantly admitted that he still didn't know what his actual job was for the day. Realizing she had completely forgotten to explain his duties, Azusa quickly recovered and told him that for now, he would accompany her to a client meeting and observe. Before leaving, she decided to teach him a bit of business etiquette, starting with how to exchange business cards. She tried to demonstrate, but when she attempted to open her card holder, it snapped open and spilled its entire contents across the floor. Mortified, she froze. Yu immediately knelt down and helped gather the scattered cards, handing them back politely. Her composure wavered, but she forced herself to thank him curtly and continued with the day. At the meeting, Azusa and Yu greeted their guests professionally. Yu followed her lead perfectly, offering his business card just as she had shown him. Outwardly, Azusa delivered her presentation flawlessly, but inside she was in chaos. She could feel Yu's attentive gaze on her the entire time, and it made her more nervous than she wanted to admit. After the meeting, Yu complimented her poise, unaware of how drained she felt. As lunchtime approached, Azusa debated whether she should invite him out. She began smiling faintly at the thought, but then panic set in. What if inviting him could be seen as inappropriate? What if she seemed too cold if she didn't? Her thoughts spiraled. She even began worrying about what kind of small talk she could manage. Yu, noticing her troubled face, asked if something was wrong. Flustered, Azusa abruptly claimed she had another meeting and told him to eat without her. She hurried off, cheeks burning and once alone slumped against a wall, sighing in defeat. Mentoring, she realized, might be harder than she thought. By the end of the day, Yu stopped by her desk to say he was heading home. Azusa gave a short acknowledgement, then mentally scolded herself for sounding cold again. But before leaving, Yu thanked her sincerely for helping him through his first day, admitting he had been nervous. Azusa softened, telling him it was natural for newcomers to make mistakes and reassuring him that he could rely on her. Her words, though few, were genuine. That night, as she walked home through the quiet streets, guilt crept in. She realized she had spent the entire day worrying about her own image instead of focusing on Yu's experience. Determined to do better, she promised herself that tomorrow, she would try to be more open and straightforward. The next morning, Yu was chatting with some coworkers when Azusa arrived. She coldly told them to make way, and everyone immediately stepped aside. Feeling oddly proud of herself for greeting them normally, she sat down, completely unaware that she had just intimidated everyone again. Later that morning, she handed Yu a new assignment, drafting a proposal for a manga studio. She gave him some of her past work as reference and told him to use it as a guide. While Yu worked, Azusa made a private vow. Today would be the day she finally invited him to lunch. When Yu came over to ask her to review his draft, she pointed out several errors and told him to revise them. Before he could start, she added that he should do the revisions after lunch. It was her chance to finally invite him. But when she turned to look for him, she saw him returning to his desk with a cup of instant noodles. Shocked, she scolded him for eating something so unhealthy. Yu sheepishly explained that he was trying to save money. Azusa froze, feeling guilty for snapping at him. She turned away, realizing she had missed her timing again and possibly sounded insensitive on top of it. During her own lunch in a small diner, she felt weighed down by frustration. She thought back to her early days, remembering how her own mentor once brought her to the same restaurant, offering kind words and encouragement. The memory stung, making her wonder if she was failing as a mentor. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was Ritsu, a senior colleague. As she walked back toward the office, they discussed pending tasks and upcoming projects. Before hanging up, Ritsu teasingly advised her to practice small talk and mentioned that the collaboration cafe project might reach out soon. When he learned she had a mentee, he laughed, reminding her to go easy on the rookie. He knew of her reputation for being strict. Azusa argued that she was doing fine, but Ritsu bluntly told her that short replies didn't count as conversation. He also warned that younger employees these days wouldn't hesitate to quit if they felt unsupported. The comment hit her hard. What if you really did leave because of her poor mentoring? That evening, as the office emptied out, Azusa stopped by a bookstore. Despite her earlier resistance, she bought several self-help books about communication and leadership. Back in her apartment, she realized she hadn't bought dinner. Opening her fridge, she found it empty and sighed, then grabbed a cup of noodles, ironically the same food she'd scolded Yu for. She tried to make herself feel better by pairing it with vegetable juice. As she flipped through the first book, one line caught her attention. A good mentor always greets others warmly, with energy and a smile. Remembering her icy greeting that morning, she groaned. Determined to improve, she grabbed a mirror and began practicing. But her forced smile looked so awkward and stiff that she quickly gave up. The next page suggested praising subordinates instead of scolding them. Azusa frowned. She believed in accuracy and improvement, not empty compliments. Was she really cut out for this role? She leaned back, exhausted, and stared at the overcooked cup noodles sitting on the table before digging in anyway. The next morning, disaster struck again. She overslept. Panicking, she rushed through her routine, terrified of being late in front of Yu. Thankfully, she made it just in time, appearing as composed as ever. But as soon as she arrived, she overheard two coworkers whispering. They called her strict and scary, saying the only reason she kept her position was because of her skill, not her people skills. The words pierced deeper than she expected. She dropped her tablet, and sticky notes covered in her self-reminders about tips to how to communicate. Yu quickly picked them up and handed them back gently, catching a glimpse of the hurt on her face before she hid it again. She muttered that they should start the day brushing it off. But before she could walk away, Yu turned toward the gossiping coworkers. With a calm smile, he said that he actually felt lucky to be under Azusa's guidance, that he had already seen her kind side. The room fell silent. The two coworkers paled, realizing Azusa had overheard everything. Yu returned to her side, quietly apologizing if he'd overstepped. Azusa turned away, pretending not to care, then whispered a faint thank you. As they walked toward their desks, she awkwardly tried to ask if he wanted to have lunch together, but Yu missed the hint entirely, cheerfully replying that he'd have noodles again, this time with a veggie stick to make it healthy. That marks the end of today's anime recap. If you enjoyed the video and want more of it, please support the channel by leaving a like and subscribe. Let's help us reach a current goal of 10K subscribers.